Pete, how you going?
Oh, I'm very good, thanks, Wade.
Well, for those who don't know, I'm Wade. I'm the guy behind the camera and all the production and whatever of these podcasts with you guys. Now we're in the middle of summer. Christmas is coming. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. Well, keep dreaming. All these things. Do you think should we see if there's a Santa in America somewhere?
Oh, well,
Maybe somewhere in Dallas. There might be a bit.
I have heard there is a Santa in Dallas.
Yeah, he might have landed from there, from the North Pole. It's a little bit shorter there. Santa, how you going? Oh, yeah. That's funny enough. My background is Dutch, and ho, ho, ho in Dutch is stop, stop, stop. So,
Well, ho 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 in Dallas means there's a lady on the street corner up there.
all right. Well, that's a different one. Mike, how are you going? All the way there in
Doing
Texas.
Yeah, I'm doing good, Wade. Good to see you. Good to see you too, Peter.
Likewise.
Well, as we said, we talked a little bit behind the scenes and behind the other side of the camera last week that maybe one day I should step in also and have a bit of a yarn with you guys, because I have to say I prefer to be behind the camera. And look at me, old fella, that we're not the best looking anymore. So further away, the better. I prefer that.
Mike makes us look even worse.
Well, yeah, but he covers it up with his Santa hat, mate. That's the difference.
That's right. That way I don't have to comb my hair.
What do you think would be under that cap? Is there a bunch of hair?
Not
You
much.
think?
Well, maybe there might have been once. Let's put it that way.
I don't know. He could brush up the eyebrows a bit. I don't know what he
No.
does, but it's anyway.
When I have a haircut now, I have both of them done.
I don't have a haircut. I have a hair shave. I find that a lot easier. It's just bang, and doesn't cost me anything than a little bit of power. Now, Mike,
Yeah, I cut my hair.
what's that, Mike?
I was just gonna say I cut my hair out here in my shed too. This is everything I'd ever do. I always do out here, but yeah, I cut my hair out here. It doesn't grow as fast as it used to, but
Yeah, but there's a difference, Mike. I don't know if you ever noticed that, and that's the evolution with males is weird in a way when you think about it, because the first 40 years of my life, I never pulled the hair out of my nose or my ear. And now on top, it's going away. So you think, could it grow inside? Because the number of times that I know it's not nice to say, but when I have hair coming out of my ear, it's like, we change. It's not fair, is it, when you think about it?
yeah. A quick story. I was getting my hair cut. I was pretty close to 40. I was probably 38, and I was getting my hair cut while I was still in the Marine Corps. And I had a female barber who was from South Korea, a great barber, but she was kept. I could see her out of the corner of my eye staring at me as she was, cutting my hair. And I guess I had a nose hair. I'm like you, it's not that pretty. But she reached over and grabbed that hair and yanked it out of my nose. And my eyes just watered up.
I was just going to say the first time you cried at the hairdressers, I guess.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Anyway, coming back to all that Christmas we talked about, Mike. That as I'm not a police officer, ex-police officer, but also from a military background. Because the accent gives it away. Before I came to Australia, I used to be in the Dutch Navy, and I ended up here in '88 with the bicentennial celebrations, and loved the place and fell in love with one of the residents, and yeah, the rest is history. And then became a journalist, but. With Christmas, and you can both answer that. I don't know. I never was into Christmas. And it started at a young age because the boy next door was an absolute horrible kiddo, much more horrible than I was ever. And he always got more presents than me, even double the amount of presents at Christmas time from Santa. So for me, Christmas was, no, don't want to know about it. And that stuck with me for most of my life. And I remember in the military, I was too happy that I was on the ship that was ship of duty. And with Christmas, we were at sea. Or I was officer of duty at one of the bases. And that meant that after 2 days Christmas, I was on duty, and then I had a week off. And I thought, oh, that's a good balance. I love that. That's so Christmas, no. So I like to hear from you guys when it comes to duty or on call or whatever. How did you experience Christmas? Was it important to you? Maybe start with you, Pete.
Well, I don't believe I ever worked Christmas Day.
Oh,
When I was stationed at Dubbo, it's a pretty big station. There was the roster bloke we used to just change the roster so that the men that had children, young children, he made sure that we had Christmas Day off.
I would think it would be the other way around, where it works like if you don't like your mother-in-law, let us know, and you can be on call.
But then when I went to my one-man stations, well, then I don't really recall working Christmas Day itself. I don't think I did, but I would have always been on call. Once you're at a one-manner, you're always on call.
Or you turn the phone off during Christmas Day.
Yeah.
What about you, Mike?
Yeah, so I'm kind of like you. In the military, obviously, you'd be overseas. They're not going to send you home for Christmas. You just gut it out. But Christmas means a lot to me and my family. It's a time to get together, and it always has been from the time I was a child. I didn't know what other people went through, but I knew in my house, my mom always just had all the decorations and the Christmas music, and she'd go through the house, just singing Christmas carols, just to herself. But it's something that it is endearing to me. When I became a police officer, it was different than the military. I'm kind of like Peter. I did have duty on police, especially when I was a brand new police officer, because all the guys with seniority, they got to pick their days off, and they would pick, if you picked Christmas, then you had to work New Year's, and and vice versa. But so I would be assigned, I'd be on duty. In other words, I'd be dressed up, ready to go. But you could wait at home. You could be at home with your family, and then if dispatch got a call to send you on, they would call you and say, "Hey, you got to go." Instead of be out actively on patrol.
Give me 5 minutes. Just finished on my turkey. Hang on, 5 minutes.
Yeah. or like you said, don't answer the phone. But we might get 2 or 3 calls on Christmas, but it wasn't anything, any emergency. It might be somebody's electricity went out. Believe it or not, people call the police for anything.
Yes, I know that.
Yeah.
But what is different, Mike, is also around Christmas is that living and having lived and grown and born in the Northern Hemisphere like yourself, hey, you look at Christmas, and can you imagine you're sitting on the beach in Sydney, it's 45 degrees, and I'm dreaming of a white Christmas? Well, keep dreaming. It's never going to happen. So all the Christmas songs are actually really related to the Northern Hemisphere. I know we have Aussie Christmas songs here, Pete.
6 White Boomers, I think.
Yeah, we have Christmas songs specifically for Australia.
Although,
How to Make Gravy is one of them.
Yeah.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. But there has been one Christmas in New South Wales, where I'm from. There's a town up in the Blue Mountains called Blackheath, and one of my very best friends used to live there, and they've actually had a white Christmas. It snow fell on Christmas Day.
I have to say, when I migrated to Australia, I swore one thing. If I ever live in an area where it's minus or it's snow, I'm out.
Yeah.
Because after Europe and after all the cold winters and wet winters in particular, I never, ever wanted to go back to.
Funny you say that, Wade. So here in Dallas, in our latitude, I've never experienced a white Christmas in Dallas, but we might get an ice storm in November. Nothing. In fact, on Christmas Day this year, it's supposed to be 83 degrees Fahrenheit, which is fairly warm.
That's pretty hot.
Yeah, it's Texas weather. Yesterday, or a week ago, it was 28 when I woke up in the morning. So
crazy.
I mean, it was literally minus whatever it is Celsius here. So it's just crazy weather. But we had a snowstorm a couple of years back that was like 17 inches. just really, really deep snow. And it was beautiful for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then I get cabin fever. Not that I need to go anywhere, but it's knowing that I can't go anywhere that just was driving me crazy. And I had to just, there were so many things that came to my mind what I wanted to do, probably because I couldn't do them. So I'm like you, Wade. I can take it for a couple of hours, but then I don't want any snow anymore.
Well, we didn't have a lot of white Christmases either. As a child, you often think you had a white Christmas. And I remember one day or 1 year within the Navy, we went for a trip to Copenhagen, and we were ship of duty. And it meant with Christmas, we were at sea, or at least away. And we decided to create our own white Christmas because in Copenhagen, a lot of people will remember the Little Mermaid there, who is actually a little mermaid, because you think it's a big statue, but when you stand next to it, it's probably 4 feet and a bit. It's very small. But there's also a massive big fountain there with sprouts everywhere, water coming out. So we decided on Christmas Eve, well, if it's not going to be a white Christmas in Copenhagen, we make a white Christmas. So we got a bag of 25 kilo of washing powder from the store down in the ship. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, we went to the fountain, filled it up. And I'll tell you what, after an hour, there was a meter of, foam. We pretended it was white, so it was snow. And not many people in Copenhagen liked it. I don't know why. We thought we'd do something nice for Christmas, but no.
That actually reminds me of that old American show, The Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah.
And the mean banker next door wanted them to have a white Christmas, and he did all these silly things to make it freezing cold. And when old Jed found out, he said to the banker, when he found out the banker it was his idea to turn the air conditioning down, and old Jed goes, only part I didn't like.
Yeah.
Fake show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit like that.
So they had a white Christmas, a fake white Christmas in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, can you believe they make like at some of these ski slopes, if they don't get enough snow, they make snow.
They do that.
These big old, do they? Yeah, big old snow blowers.
Business. Yeah. It's hey, if there's snow on the next mountain, you lose a lot of tourists. So yeah, of course. Now, again, about Christmas, start with you, maybe, Mike, now. In your policing time, did you find around Christmas that people were different, were maybe not as aggressive, a bit more understanding and nicer and kinder to each other? Or was it like what I've often seen in Australia, a rat race because summer holiday starts and it's Christmas? So were people different around Christmas time? Do you remember?
Yeah, no, I do remember. And fortunately, around here, I haven't, because I guess probably the difference it being winter here and summer there, we've discussed how people act different when it's a hot day or, as you remember, the full moon. But here, Christmas is normally, fairly cool most of the time. And plus people are, they're, I'm not a psychologist, but I think they're more in tune to, the giving and the receiving and just, I don't know how real it is or not real, but I think every Christmas that I spent as a police officer has been fairly decent, fairly good folks react, Yeah, I can't recall any Christmas that I was like, oh my God, that's just crazy,
What about you, Pete?
Yeah.
Well, we used to have in Dubbo, there was a company that you could pay money to each week, and at Christmas time they would deliver a hamper to your home, and it was called Crisco was the name of the company.
Yeah.
They would advertise on TV. Anyway, but they become so bad, like people would leave the Crisco would leave the hamper on your veranda, but people would come and steal it, because if there was alcohol in the Crisco box, it was a different color. It might have been purple, I think. And so we used to actually have what I think I might have termed coined the phrase the Crisco riots. And Because if people saw on Mike's veranda, he's got a purple hamper, there's grog in it, and they'll go and steal it. People just used to get
That's
so drunk.
interesting.
But that happens in today's world. It's like all the deliveries from Amazon and
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
How
yeah.
often do you see that? You see it on YouTube, all the clips where people are following the DHL or whatever truck run up. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a pre-runner. I'm talking about 20 years ago.
yeah.
It was sort of funny, but horrible at the same time.
So what we like to do here is, I told you all a story a couple episodes ago to where we tracked down a guy that was stealing presents off people. It was falling to Amazon or the DHL, and my wife and I ended up buying the presents for the kids because we took, you have to take all those gifts to see if those were stolen as well. It's just whenever you do an investigation, you take everything. So those kids weren't going to have a Christmas, plus their daddy, and I don't know if it was their stepmom or the real mom. I can't remember, but, they were put in jail right before Christmas. They weren't going to be able to get out. They had no money. So we bought presents, my wife and I did, for those three kids, just so they would have, some kind of Christmas. So fast forward, several years after that, up until pretty recently, we would pick out a family or kids that were in need that weren't gonna have a Christmas, and my wife and I would just buy some gifts. It wasn't I mean, we didn't go overboard and have to take a loan or something, but it doesn't take much to make a kid happy. And so and it's more for us instead of giving each other something, or my kids are all adults and they're all on board with, hey, instead of buying us gifts at our age, please do this for these other kids. And so that's what we kind of did.
I have to say, Mike, I have to say, where I'm not a Christmas person at all, and I've never have been and will be, I don't know. But the only real nice Christmas I ever had was in 1999. I was living in Melbourne, not a big city or bigger city in this country. And with a couple of friends, we decided we're going to set up barbecues in one of the parks near us. And we hire a band to perform. And we got a bus, and in the morning early, we picked up about 50 homeless people off the street to give them a good Christmas. And they had a ball. They had a great time. And my biggest worry was, but I was totally wrong, and I even asked a few of them, I thought, we take you now for a nice day out for Christmas, give you presents, give you this, that, and anything. But by the end of the day, we're almost going to put you back in your misery, because we're going to take you back where we picked you up. But all of them, they said, no, mate, it was great. We had a great time, great day, and we will cherish it. Yeah. So it shows you that where your thoughts can be often wrong. You know what I mean? Where you think,
and you know what? I think it's when you do something like that, it's more for your soul, than it is for the kids or the homeless people receiving it. To me, it always makes me feel good, because I deal with, I don't anymore, but and Peter can attest to this. We deal with the lowest of the low. It's just, it will jade you to be so tired of people. Because of our all day long, who we're dealing with are just derelicts, or it's just mind numbing how many people are out there that are, pieces of crap. So when you get a chance to actually do something that is human, it strengthens your humanity, because we lose our humanity. We think everybody's a dirtbag after so long of doing this job. I think it's cathartic for us to give back to the people that are less fortunate, and it kind of resets our battery.
Yeah, that's a very important. Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that.
well,
True.
that makes me think of something. Then is that, and I often wondered, and I can ask you now: do police have a sense of humor? because you say what you're dealing with and all the time. I remember one vividly years ago. I was stopped outside of a country town in New South Wales, I think it was. And here's this police officer, and he said, "You were speeding coming out of town." So there was a sign of 50 and a sign of 70, but and then a sign of 100, but I was already doing 85 when it still said 70. And he said, "What's your excuse?" And I said, "Well, do me a favor, tell me which one works." And he didn't find that fun. To me, that was a normal question. I could think of 10, 20 excuses why I was speeding. Hey, there's the old joke, yeah. My wife left me for a police officer a few years ago, and I thought you were going to bring it back. That sort of dumb things. But I thought, well, I might as well ask him, well, what's the best one? Which one works? Tell you what, the fine was bigger than if I had said nothing. So do you guys have a sense of humor in your work or when you were working?
Oh, for sure. Like, I think that going back to what Mike just said about humanity and dealing with getting jaded, I found, and I think that highway patrolmen were, I think, particularly jaded because what they dealt with was most of the time was good people. And one of the times there was a highway patrolman who I think he was being disciplined. He must have done something wrong. He was being disciplined, and his punishment was to do general duties for maybe a month. And this is in Dubbo, a pretty tough spot. Anyway, it was like having a probationary constable with you. Knew nothing about criminal stuff. Anyway, at the end of this particular shift, this highway patrolman said to me, and he was senior, we were the same rank, but he was certainly a senior policeman to me, and he said, "Now I know why you GDs, meaning general duties, why you GDs guys have such a bad attitude." He said, "All you deal with is shit." Because most of the time they deal with decent people.
Well, here's the deal, Peter. Good people don't call us because they don't need us. You know? So, and when I talk to people who have never been a police officer and they say, "Why are you this way or you're that way?" And, and I tell them, because you're not dealing with the people that we deal with, You're dealing with your coffee not being hot enough when you pick it up, We're dealing with a guy that just threw a puppy off a bridge, and it's the whole gambit,
But did you guys ever try to sort of work a little bit of humor into if you had a situation?
Yeah.
Have you got an example?
You go, Mike.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that it was more fun than maybe what I lead you to believe. We dealt with the derelicts and all that, but somebody's name could cause you to giggle, and I don't know if y'all seen. There's a show here in America about Super Troopers. I think it's what it's called.
No, I've never seen that.
And there, it's just it's a comedy, about what police officers might do, and and it's kind of funny. We kind of do the same thing, we might play off of each other. Two cops might play off of each other comically while they're doing, a call. But if you're going to do that, if you're not going to be professional, and I say that loosely, then you don't write this person a ticket either. You let them have a laugh as well, but they don't know how to handle it because they don't know if you're being serious or not, so.
Yeah, well, I come across this word Harridan, Harriden, I think it's spelled. And for a while there, and I clued my partner in on the joke. And if there was some lady that was being particularly obnoxious, I would say, "I think, are you a Harridan?" And it sounds like a surname. "Are you a Harridan?" "Oh, no, I'm not a Harridan." "No, I think you might be a Harridan." Anyway, just have a private joke, something like that.
But is it then, Pete, not because you could feel threatened in certain situations too? And what I'm going to is that, say you're in a one-man station, like if Mike is a police officer in Dallas, He goes home at night time, and he probably won't see the crims or people that he dealt with or whatever you call them any other time, where you were constantly dealing with the same people all the time. So what are situations where you sort of felt threatened when somebody said, I know where you live, I'll find you?
Well, they certainly knew where I lived because there was a dirty, great big
Yeah, that's what I mean.
sign out the front of my house and said, police.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
No, I don't think I ever felt, no, not the least bit about that. No, I mean, there is a rather funny story about when I first moved to Manildra, and someone threw a firework into my backyard. Well, I got in, and I wasn't on duty. I got into my truck and I went and made some inquiries, and the person never did it again, put it that way. But the one funny story is that when in the police truck, we got a new generation lights and siren system. And the new generation one was that you could actually record an audio message on it, like, stay inside, there's a bushfire, something like that, something official. But when it first came out, it had a handbook and it told us how to do the recording. What we did was that we recorded the sound of a cow mooing. So every time for a while, when there was someone that there was been a bit of a problem, when we'd leave, we would just hit the button and over the PA system, you just hear, no.
I had a tricky one with that not that long ago, because this is with our radio station that we run here on the island, and they wanted volunteers for the fire brigade. So I put a promotion together to run on the radio, and I thought, you know what, funny, start with a siren of a fire truck, so that people, oh, what's this? You always want to create curiosity. Then I had a few people, and they said, why, bloody listening to your radio station in the car, and scared the crap out of me because I thought I had a fire brigade behind me. Oh, better take that off air. So you can't go wrong with it too much.
Oh, we actually got into trouble one night from the inspector, because when we pulled up at the front of the police station, 4:00 in the morning, we hit the button, no, and people across the road, they said, what's going on over there? We can hear a cow mooing.
And as a punishment now, he has to milk cows now. Well, there you go.
Yeah, right. So he knew what his future held.
Yeah, definitely. That's so what are you going to do with Christmas, Mike? You're already talking about family and getting together and like nice quietly at home and.
Yeah. We just stay at home. And in fact, my wife and I we were looking at, grandbaby toys today. We just took a little time and went to the store and looked in the toy aisle, just for toys. The joy for an adult at Christmas is watching the kids and now the grandkids tear into these packages, and, just the surprise. And I can remember being a kid, taking the present and shaking it, trying to figure out what was in it, and my dad always said, it's a box of rocks, and and then one Christmas, he always told that to me and I had two sisters, and one sister was real curious as a cat, and he told her, Pam, it's a box of rocks, and he had gone out to the front yard and he had white rocks, for his flower bed, and he got him some white rocks and put it in his box and wrapped it up, and she opened it, and sure enough, it's a box of rocks, and so it's little memories. I have wonderful memories of my childhood, Wade, like you alluded to with the boy next door. You didn't have such good memories of Christmas, but I have better memories of my daughters, on Christmas morning with their eyes this big and, thinking that Santa literally came in there and ate cookies. And
well, lucky you always woke up at 3-4 o'clock anyway, because I'm sure they wake up early.
Yeah. You had to get up early on Christmas morning to put together the bikes and the playhouses and, so after the kids go to bed, so that kind of fantasy, is something that, now my daughters are adults, and now and I only have one granddaughter. I have two granddaughters, but one of them's fixing to be 22. So she doesn't believe, but the little one right now, she's just, it's all about Christmas and Santa and reindeer and why they're innocent. I want to foster that reality is going to hit them soon enough. I want them to live in this fantasy as long as she can,
Is it also that with kids coming to a certain age that they believe in Santa 1 week of the year?
Yeah, that's all I believed in it when I was a kid.
And
what Christmas? The Christmas for us was, hey, we got out a week for school.
Right.
And what about your Christmas, Pete? What is it going to be?
I was a little kid growing up in Sydney. We still had a bit of a gravel road out the front, and I convinced myself that I found the Santa's sleigh marks in the gravel.
Oh,
But I really appreciated that. In the house I grew up in, there was 5 kids. Mum and Dad and Grandma lived with us, and so there's 8 people there. But it was always fantastic. My father was a labourer. So he wasn't a big wage earner. He worked overtime every day. The best father you could possibly have. He was just a fantastic man. And we always had great Christmases. And they never, I had just the most wonderful parents.
What about Christmas 2025?
This year, I'm going to church on Christmas Eve at 10 p.m. And
are you Catholic?
At 10 p.m. there's a service at the Anglican Church in Curry.
Oh,
and I'm going to go to that. And I was talking to the rector yesterday. He said they're going to have candles. I'm not normally drawn to that sort of thing, but I enjoy the pathos, if I can use that word, of Christmas. I love the Christmas story. It is the most wonderful story, and I love it. I'm just in love with the whole thing. So I'm really looking forward to going to 10 p.m. service on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah. In Curry, he mentioned Curry. It's not capital. Indian Curry, but Curry is the capital of this island with 584 residents. As of yesterday. It could have changed today, but it's like
might be a Christmas miracle.
You never know. So yeah, that's a little bit Christmas. Now. Going back to the reality, did you guys get any more questions on the last week? Or
one of them was about the difference in punishment between US courts and Australian courts. And I think the general.
Well, we don't have the death penalty, so from that point of view.
But the general feeling I get is that American courts hand out much stiffer penalties for murder and for offences committed against children.
Really? Are you saying that Australia may be a little lenient?
I think so, especially offences committed against children. It's almost paltry. It's almost embarrassing what they do.
Is it also because of defense and prosecution is that, say you have somebody that, for example, killed 2 or 3 people, that they only bring them into court for the one case because then at least we know for sure, but then the sentence might be actually more lenient?
No, I don't think so. No.
I don't know. It's like, do you think that there is, well, put it this way, how do we compare where it is more lenient? You almost need a case like if somebody killed somebody at a certain age and with a certain way, what do you get for punishment in Australia? What is the punishment in America? I don't.
Well, I will tell you in Texas, and it's not every state in Texas. I mean, not every state in America, but as far as Texas goes, we do have capital punishment in this state. In other words, you take a life in Texas, there's a good possibility, Texas is going to kill you. But it's not just taking a life. So you have to take a life in commission of another felony.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you break into somebody's house, that's one felony, and then you killed somebody, then you're eligible for capital punishment. You don't always get the death penalty is not always sought in these cases, and I'm not really privy to the reasons why, but to get to that high level, you have to have 2 felonies or more. If a lady is sexually assaulted, and then killed, that's gonna qualify the
Okay, that fits with what I've seen. The last person executed in this country was in 1967. And that was by hanging, and it's very fits with what you just said, Mike. He actually murdered a jail guard during a breakout.
There you go. So
Mm.
he was committing one crime and also the
Yeah.
murder, and those two
Mm.
together would qualify for the person. Now, if you murder somebody, uh, let's say a crime of passion, the person cut you off on the highway and you ended up shooting at this person, and you never even saw the person, but the bullet went through the vehicle and it struck
And that
maybe
happens,
somebody
yeah.
sitting in
Mm.
somebody in the back seat. Let's just say that's not going to qualify for the death penalty.
Mhm.
It's going to be a stiff sentence, but it's not going to be a life sentence. So there's different levels, I guess I should say.
There
So
was so go on.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
The last time there was a judge here, and it wasn't really not all that long ago. His name is Judge Michael Fanane, and he handed out, I think it was either 53 or 54 years to these people for aggravated sexual assault. He should have made Australian of the Year. It was a fantastic penalty, and he said that it was worse than murder, that these people committed. I mean, I'll say that sentence was reduced upon appeal, but that was a fantastic penalty. And Michael Fanane was known to be really, really tough. If you went to a local court here, or a district court, sorry, and it's a local court, and the magistrate handed out, say, 6 months for an assault, and you appealed the severity of the sentence, you then had to go before a judge of the district court. And that particular judge, I was told, fairly reliably, he routinely doubled it.
I have to say, you talk about penalties and death penalties. Interesting. Yesterday, I watched a documentary about the oldest woman in America that is still on death row. And she's 92, and she's in Carolina, I think it was, and Carolina stopped with executing people, even if they had received the death penalty.
Wow.
But she got sentenced in the 90s because she was really good with arsenic. That she poisoned people, that arsenic, whatever you call it. Everybody calls it different.
Right. Yeah.
And she ended up on the death penalty, but she's still in jail, 92. And,
No, well,
anyway,
I would guess that they're probably going to let her live out her days, But we have, so we talked about the sexual assault type of deals here. So here in Texas, and this is probably universal throughout the United States, we have what they call the sexual offenders list. And if a sexual offender is found guilty and they do their time in prison and they get out and they move, let's say they move to my town here, then they go on anybody in this town or anybody anywhere in the United States can look up Texas sexual offenders for this town, and it'll tell you where they're living and what their name is, what they, what offense they committed. And for a lot of them, those are, and they have to check in once a year, I believe, to, make sure that their address is always right. So they keep kind of the thumb on them for the rest of their life. So it's, but then like Peter was saying, there's other things that you think should, rise to a level that they need stiffer punishments. And for whatever the reason, the judge or the jury doesn't hand down a stiffer prison sentence that I would think they should get, but I arrested a guy for driving under the influence. We've discussed driving while intoxicated a lot. It was his 8th time. Why is that guy even out of jail? Or why is he out of prison?
Yeah.
He's been found guilty 7 other times. And I arrested him for the 8th time. And he did get 25 years off of my arrest for, once, we get a list back from the courts whenever the disposition is, whenever their turn goes through the court. And I think he got 25 years off of that. But But the point being is, if he had 6 and he ran into somebody on the 7th one and killed them, who's really at fault there? That guy obviously is at fault for drinking and driving, but why was he able to be free to drink and drive after 5 other times?
Yeah.
So those are mind numbing when you do those.
Here's another question, Mike. Is that with the death penalty, is it the biggest punishment for if you get the death penalty, sentenced to the death penalty, is then the biggest punishment actually not the actual death penalty, but the waiting time? It's like if I knew, for example, that I would receive the death penalty, I'd probably say, can we do it tomorrow? Because I have no future. What am I doing here? Instead of sitting there in some cases, like, I don't know why they do it. It's all with the courts, but where somebody is still in jail for maybe 10, 15 years.
Sure, 30.
Or 30 before it finally happens. And that, I think that must be the biggest punishment. That you don't know.
Yeah, it's got to suck for sure.
And oftentimes that's because the defendant or the prisoner keeps pushing.
Keeps appealing.
Another review.
Oh, that too, of course.
But if you're going to kill someone, you got to make sure you do it right. I mean, there's got to be there's automatic appeals, and you don't want it like in the Wild West where they hung them up that afternoon.
Well, speak for yourself, Peter.
The funny thing is, we still live in a world where people are locked up and they're actually innocent. So there's still flaws in the whole jurisdiction.
I would make it, if we brought back the death penalty in this country, and I would be more than happy to do that, but I would make it 0 doubt. I would have a new offence, aggravated murder, 0 doubt. You get the death penalty.
Well, you know what? I think if a person is caught, let's say you pull over somebody for whatever reason, and you end up doing a search in the car and you find a dead body in the trunk, right? And that's kind of red-handed. He or she, I mean, it could be a baby, right? And you caught them red-handed. And it still takes them 20 years, though all these appeals, was his rights, protected and this or that. I mean, you have a dead body in your trunk. Why are we waiting so long? I mean, but the one where you investigate and they investigate for 6 months and they come to the conclusion that beyond a reasonable doubt, they think this guy did it. But like Peter's saying, you want 100%. I'm with you. I think there should be an appeal process. They killed a guy here in Texas a few years back. He was accused of killing his family in a fire. He was accused of setting his house on fire, arson, and his babies. I don't know how old they were, but they were young. Ended up perishing in this fire. They convicted him, put him in prison, and they ended up executing him. And it come to find out subsequent to that the science that they used to convict this guy was junk science, and there's a more than a reasonable doubt that it was a natural fire in the house, electrical fire, or in other words, not arson, and he didn't have anything to do with it. He's still dead. So I do think there needs to be checks and balances.
Oh, yeah. One of the most famous case in Australia, or infamous case, was that Lindy Chamberlain, quite some time ago, where a dingo took her baby and killed her baby. The baby was called Azaria. And, she was completely and utterly innocent. And she spent a long time in prison.
How'd they figure out she was innocent?
Well, they figured it out because years and years later, they found the jumpsuit that the baby was wearing, and it had been, quite clearly, it was an animal that had done that. And, Lindy Chamberlain always maintained her innocence. And I was probably, I know that I always believed her. I never believed that she did it. But she had a religious background, and she was largely convicted because she had a religious background. People made all the most bizarre, stupid, evil stories about her. Yeah, that Azaria Med sacrifice in the wilderness or in the desert, stupid stuff like that.
But isn't it also that at least now we live in a world where if you look at all the technologies and all the technologies that can be used by detectives, by police and whatever, it is now a lot easier to find your criminal, to have somebody convicted, to have the evidence
Oh, yeah,
compared with
been
40,
fantastic.
50 years ago. Because I bet you that half a century ago, how many people ended up in jail that were actually innocent? That must have happened a fair bit.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
Yeah,
wasn't
and-
it often that you hear that police have such a narrow focus on solving the case and then missing out on a lot of things and actually have gone totally in the wrong direction? That happened too a
you
fair
have
bit.
to.
Yeah, I think we're all guilty of that. I think we, as police, we have we've talked about the racism or we talked about the profiling. I think police officers get to a point that we've talked about this. They're so jaded that maybe you dealt with this guy. We've talked about this before, being a frequent flyer. Once every 6 months, the guy that Peter almost shot. He dealt with him before. And so you just feel like, yeah, that guy's good for it. I know he did it. Some of these circumstantial evidence seems to line up to it, but I think you get overshadowed with the thought that that guy is already guilty in your mind, and you might overlook the fact that, hey, there could actually be some explanation for some of this evidence other than, something that's pointing to this person. And I'm sure Peter would agree, I mean, maybe not, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Peter, but
one of the things I used to do, if I was investigating a crime, I almost always put myself in the position, if I was defending this bloke, how would I do that? Always look at it from the other side.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I'll freely admit most of the reason I did that was that I was trying to find the holes in my own argument, because I've been in court plenty of times being cross-examined, and it was just almost my way to think, if I was defending this bloke, where's the holes in the argument? Because I wasn't privy to what the defence was going to say. You'd have to think ahead, get in. That's the way I used to do it.
But how is it then for police officers? And this is where they talk about fraudulent and whatever happens. How is it for police officers that have to score? Hey, like for their next rank, or they had a few bad experiences and their superiors weren't too happy and with what they do. Is there an element, or is that tricky?
Well, I never experienced anybody, doing something in order to get a foot up. I think everybody that I knew were honorable guys. If there was a mistake made, that's exactly what it was. It was a mistake. And if it come to find out, the mistake, was an elementary mistake, then maybe the guy doesn't deserve a promotion. But you don't want to pin it on him, being stretching the truth, so to speak. And so I didn't know of anybody that would finger somebody in order to get to make a next rank. I don't know that police officers I think in general, talking to Peter, talking to other police officers, we're fairly honorable. There's some bad ones out there. I agree, but I think the vast majority of police officers have great integrity and great moral, a great moral compass.
Well, I know what was one thing, Mike, is and with Pete, with his own Aussie Bush Cop podcast, you have been asked many times, Pete, by people, hey, what about corrupt police in New South Wales? And police in New South Wales in the 90s was known as being corrupt. A lot of police stations, even where we had the shooting not long ago at Bondi Beach, there was a police station there that was known as a center of grab your marijuana and pills and whatever. There was a lot of bad.
Do you know how many people were arrested and convicted after the Wood Royal Commission, but pretty clear, very, very few.
Yeah.
So I think the perception of corruption was much bigger than what it really is. And one of the problems that when I joined the coppers that we were, if we went to a McDonald's restaurant, they would give us half price. Now, the
Yeah,
commissioner said, if you accept half price McDonald's, you are corrupt. And
I agree.
and I think that that sets the bar of corruption pretty low. And so, and we're also, I mentioned at the other podcast about being targeted, that the New South Wales Police could do targeted operations against police. Integrity testing, it was called. And for a period of time there, in the men's toilet at the WA police station, there was a few coins left on the hand basin. And someone said, "Oh, that's the internal affairs that put that there." And there's a covert camera. And if you pick that coin up and put it in your pocket, they're going to do you for larceny by finding. Seriously, that's what was being said.
But does it surprise you in a way that you have often been asked through your podcast and in the comments about corruption?
Yeah.
So there must still be maybe with older people.
Look,
I don't know.
I think that there's a lot of people, well, not a lot, but there's some people who just have an absolute gripe and grind against police.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll try and find it in any way. And they may have a particular negative experience from police. The police, I went to the police and they didn't find something wrong, or they sidestepped it, that sort of thing. And then they invent stories, and they're largely not true. I've never seen any level of corruption in the New South Wales Police. I mean, the opposite. I've seen. I had to admit to two things that I did wrong, or mistakes that I made, and I thought these are going to be career ending. And I was absolutely frank with what happened, and in both times I was found to have done nothing wrong. Yeah. And that was a great relief. But at the time, it was gut-wrenching.
Well, yeah. So I've said this before. Police officers are we're our own worst enemy. We have people in our ranks that are corrupt, or they're assholes, and it affects everybody that wears a uniform. I've said how I wouldn't, if I was in my police car, I wouldn't exceed the speed limit. Because people look at us and say, you have the powers of arrest. You have the powers to stop us from our travels because we speed or we roll through a stop sign or a stoplight. And yet, because you have that power, you have that badge on your chest, you just roll through a stop sign and, no one's going to do anything to you, but yet you'll take that money from us, the normal working guy that's out there doing plumbing or something. And I agree with him. But that's a police officer's internal integrity. And I used to tell my police officers that your integrity is the only thing you own in your life. You don't own your house. I mean, the government could take your house if you don't pay your taxes. Even if you pay your houses off, you don't pay your land taxes. They can come and so you don't own anything other than your integrity, and no one can take that integrity away from you. But if you give it away, you can never get it back. And that's how I've lived my life. And I know a lot of police officers that live that way, but there's a lot of police officers that don't. And those police officers, what's that?
Sorry, go continue.
I was just going to say those police officers is what makes everybody focus that we're all that way. And those police officers make it dangerous for us. Because if we are viewed as being corrupt, and the corrupt guys, the bad guys, have no respect for us, we're no longer doing our job. Now we're being corrupt and penalizing them, and they'll come after you. Or there's a possibility they could, but
isn't often your situation as a police officer that you, in a way, you're actually walking a fine line? Because the work that you do, it's so easy to go a little bit too much to the left or the right, and then you have the public opinion, or you have the criminal you're dealing with. So it's a very fine line when you think about it.
Got to learn to care, not to care what the public thinks. I mean, the funny story, but when I was getting an award it's a medal for diligent and ethical service. And if you're in the coppers 10 years and you get through, you generally call it the Good Boy Award. So I was getting
You don't get caught.
I was getting my Good Boy Award by an assistant commissioner, a very, very high rank, and so this assistant commissioner is giving me this award at an award ceremony, and he said, "Oh, Peter," he said, "you're from Manilda." He said, "I'm coming to your station shortly just to do an inspection," and he was known to be very easily upset if everything wasn't right, And I said, "Oh, that's lovely, sir. I'll see you there later." There was a nice morning tea, cakes and sandwiches, and my wife was there and my kids were there. We didn't hang around because at the time there was a dispute going on between who was mowing my lawn, between the contractor. I said to my wife, "Let's get out of here quick. I've got to go home and mow the lawn."
But he wouldn't take your medal away when he came down, would he? The medal is...
He could do. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get on the wrong side of an assistant commissioner, I'll tell you that much.
I have to say, Mike, we in the Dutch Navy, we used to laugh about the American Navy because at the time in the Dutch Navy, you hardly ever got a medal for anything. And we used to say, "Look at the Americans. They eat with knife and fork without making a mess for 4 weeks. Here's another medal." I think that's over the top, isn't it? But that's what we always found.
What about those groups? You see those prince, the king, and the princes. They're all got chests full of medals. You think,
but that's inheritance. That's inheritance. And you visit a certain country, then you get the Medal of Honor or whatever, mate. It's all. Even look at their ranks.
Yeah.
Look at Prince Charles or King Charles now with all he's a whatever admiral. Well, he wouldn't even know what starboard is or whatever. Come on. I better be careful now. Better be careful.
One of the places I lived in was the police residence. I wish I had kept a copy of it, but my landlord was Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Wow.
That'd have been great, It was Her Most Gracious Queen Elizabeth II.
But I bet you didn't ring her when you had a plumbing problem or whatever.
Just the line went dead, wasn't interested.
So let me ask you this, Peter. So you mentioning that in the police force, when you were in this rural area, they provided you quarters, what we would call quarters, but a place to live for you and your family?
Quite a nice, it was just a modest home, a 3-bedroom home. I had 2 of them. And the rent was calculated on 3% of my wage, which was a moving figure. If I did overtime or more night shift, it was just always 3% of whatever wage I got that fortnight. So it's pretty cheap. Wow.
And he didn't have air conditioning because there were enough bullet holes, so he didn't need it.
That's right.
No need to wait in the window.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's different. Get back on the punishment thing that Wade had brought up. I don't know what the punishment is in Australia. In Texas, it's different than what Oklahoma would have or California. We have 3 levels of misdemeanor. So running a red light would be the lowest misdemeanor. That would be what we consider a Class C, and that's only a fine. All those offenses can only result in a fine, no jail term. And then Class B, one step up, might be you punch somebody. You got in an argument and you punch somebody. That would be considered an assault, and that would be considered a Class B. And depending on the amount of injuries, how high of what your fine plus. Now you're also eligible for jail time. And then Class A would be, your first DWI would be a Class B. Your second one would be a Class A, and it would elevate like that, as well as theft. If you stole, let's say you stole somebody's lawnmower, the value of that lawnmower would put you in what level of A, B, or C. And then felonies, there's 4. There's state jail, which is the lowest. Then there's a 3rd-degree felony, a 2nd-degree felony, and a 1st-degree felony. And that would be your murders and your manslaughters and assaults with bodily injury, serious bodily injury or sexual assaults, things like that. So those punishments in those levels all come with more and more punishments available to that you could be sentenced with. But
well, I'm gonna go. Sorry, Mike. I'm gonna go for a misdemeanor and punishment too now, because being the producer, this is the longest podcast that you guys have done so far.
wow.
You blame me for that because I'm sitting in. Also, we're going over an hour now, so I think we're gonna shortcut it almost, because otherwise people might fall asleep. We don't want to do that. But, maybe I can ask you to both of you leave us with a nice little Christmas message. I don't know. Have you say something to the world?
Oh,
On you, Peter.
peace and goodwill to all men.
I suck in that. Merry Christmas to everybody. And, let's just make a safe new year coming up. But for now, kiss your family and give them a big hug.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.